Hey, today I'm going to be talking about the pressures that regional carriers and some of the state-run Blue Cross plans are under and what you need to look out for this annual election period. Now, with all the turmoil going on in Medicare Advantage, a lot of the attention is on the national players as they're making big changes to protect their profitability, right? But when you get to the regional players, we're not necessarily even just looking at profitability as much as we're looking at solvency, okay? So right now, there's not risk that UnitedHealthcare or Humana are anywhere near insolvency. They're very large. They have tens of millions of members. They have diversification of certain product lines, and they have a very, very large revenue cycle, and they are looking for ways to improve on that because obviously they do want to grow their stock price and their profitability over time. And so that can be a big shock to a lot of people that are worried about, certain geographical pressure with non-commissionable plans or the way in which they're paying for certain plan swaps, et cetera, reduced street level commissions in certain aspects. And of course, we do agree that there are some issues with that, but we also understand the market is changing rapidly. But today I want to focus on the regional carriers. As many people write their state-run Blue Cross plans, they write regional smaller carriers in Wisconsin or Minnesota or Florida or California. And I think it's important to know the just immense amount of pressure that some of those plans are under because they're actually affected by the same thing that the national carriers are, but they don't have the membership to back it in many cases. So just looking here, this is a report from Healthscape Advisors, which is a Chartist company. This is just a group that does a lot of research on this sort of thing. But I'm going to go over for just a second to the Becker article that I found this from. How do I go back? Back right here. So beckerspayer.com. Most regional payers are operating at a loss. 5 notes. This is 5 notes that primarily come from that report. And in these 5 notes, we're going to start off with number 1. Over the past 3 years, operating margins for regional payers have steadily declined as pricing pressures from employers and regulators intensify. Unlike their national peers, regionals have struggled to offset headwinds through diversification or scaling. So that's note number 1, kind of what we just talked about. But note number 2 takes a good little turn here. Regional and Blue Cross Blue Shield plans are reporting higher administrative loss ratios and medical loss ratios compared to national peers. They are facing steeper challenges funding digital infrastructure, analytics, and compliance initiatives. On the medical side, rising utilization, GLP-1 drug use, and longer hospital stays are exacerbating those burdens, okay? Remember, we're talking about the regional players, the Blue Cross Blue Shield, state-run charters, not necessarily somebody like Elevance or Anthem that has more diversification, although they have had their challenges this year as well. Number 3, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act will drop around 7.5 million people from Medicaid. And I think this is something I had never really realized, but because regional plans have a heavier reliance, remember, proportional to their membership, they have a heavier reliance on Medicaid membership. This contraction will pose a disproportionate risk to their membership base in the near future. So when you're thinking about one of these regional plans, just know that from that aspect of it, maybe if it's a regional plan that does have a focus on the chronic and the dual market, that might be one that's even more stretched thin by this. Number 4, among the 111 regionals analyzed, 111 regional carriers, think about that. They analyzed quite a few. 80 were operating at a loss in 2024, and 51% have less than 2 years of runway before hitting a company action level regulatory threshold. Well, what does that mean? Absent significant financial improvements or capital infusion, that stress is especially severe for those with fewer than 500,000 members. I'm going to give you like 500,000 members. I believe Devoted is under 500,000 members, and that's probably one of the larger players in that space as they become a national player. They're probably going to pass that 500,000 threshold this year, but imagine that if Devoted is not even close to that or is just now getting there, a lot of these smaller carriers are far under that. If you're in a state with low population and it's a local Blue Cross Blue Shield charter, odds are they're already in that situation. And as further indication, there's already been several of these smaller carriers that we can note. The Blues come to mind initially because if you look at Blue Cross Blue Shield Kansas City last year completely pulled out of the market, dumping people in the market. This happened in Rhode Island, and Blue Cross of Idaho had this issue. Regents, they all dumped this year their plans in the market, and I'm sure there are others that are doing the same. Now, if you're writing a Blue Cross Blue Shield charter, think about it. If they have a heavy emphasis on Medicaid, or if a big chunk of their business is Medicaid, that's going to make them disproportionately affected by this. But when I look at the ones that we think are doing well, typically they're going to be ones that don't have benefit-rich markets, but they have gone after the name brand plans with probably lower potential for covering insane out-of-pocket or freebies and giveaways. So maybe some of those can do a little better. They balance what they're doing. But I think it's important. You could probably get into the data on this analysis that I had up before the Speckers thing to see like which carriers are more disproportionately affected by this. But number 5 is interesting. To survive, regional health plans need to implement bold cost controls, reconfigure leadership, partner or merge with better capitalized organizations, or close after all operations are exhausted. Now, we know Blue Cross of Louisiana, for instance, was about to sell to Elevance, and somehow that deal got unwound. I think it's because Elevance, who was buying a lot of them, is having their own financial troubles, and they're just trying to reconfigure some of the things they were doing. Not sure if that's what it was or if it was on the Blue Cross of Louisiana side, but that's a carrier right there that I would potentially be looking into. What is the future of some of these Blue Cross Blue Shield carriers? What is the future of some of the smaller carriers? We just had one called Sonder that filed for insolvency mid-year and lost all of their membership, and a lot of people were targeting Georgia Medicare beneficiaries to try to help them find a plan in the new year. In Minnesota, we're seeing UCare dump its entire base into the market, the open market for Medicare Advantage. So tons of these plans and these regional carriers are doing this. Yes, you have issues with national carriers, but I would say probably the best bet for placing business right now is to avoid non-special needs plan PPOs and focus as much as possible on larger national carriers that have more than 500,000 members. More than 500,000 members, and as often as possible, sell the benefits of HMOs and focus on special needs plans with those larger carriers. Because if you focus on non-SNP PPOs and regional carriers, it could be a rough market for you if you put all your eggs in that basket. So just something to think about today. Wanted to get that out to you guys. If you're looking for this, you can comment below and I'll send you the link to this video or the link to this article. And yeah, something to keep in mind for this AEP. That's a video.